Though I play tabletop games, build terrain, paint minis, I have never played a game of Warhammer 40K in my life, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. Here's why. Hi, I'm Katie. Welcome back to Nerdic Inspiration, a place where we paint, create, learn, and discuss the nerdiest of things in the coolest of ways. Welcome back. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Warhammer 40K. And why I have yet to play an actual game of it. My first exposure to Warhammer was when Dawn of War was released back in 2004. I distinctly remember begging my mom to get me the PC game because I thought the Necrons looked really freaking cool. This was back when those computer games were sold in a box and they came on CD-ROMs and you would have to install multiple CD-ROMs onto your PC. This game took like 10 minutes just to load up on the PC to get to the main menu, but when I started playing it to tiny me back then, it was really cool. I remember not being very good at the game because I wanted to do more of the actual building and not so much of the attacking, which is kind of the premise of the game. Back in my teen years, I think I read one or two of the 40K books. I don't remember which ones, but you know those covers were super rad. In my young adult years, I have gotten more and more into tabletop gaming, more so even than video games. I even started to live stream gameplay of tabletop games, some of those actually being 40K. To be honest, I really just liked looking at the board setup. I enjoyed the miniatures more than I enjoyed the actual battle report. In the last 12 months or so, I've been drawn into a little bit more of the 40K lore as I've seen Instagram painters and YouTubers that I consume content for posting more about this stuff. They paint some of these really interesting minis and I like to watch people do kit bashing and conversions, but I still don't see myself actually ever playing 40K. My favorite part of game culture is the creative aspect, from crafting something completely unique to painting a mini. Games like Warhammer that involve strategic wargaming and large army building were just never at the top of my list. Compare that to games like Dungeon Delvers and adventure RPGs, that's my jam. Some will argue that you can kit bash and do conversions and do all these creative things with Warhammer minis, which I totally get. Those are really cool and that's the kind of content that I will follow for 40K. I think I would actually enjoy doing one of those kit bashes using 40K kits. And let's be real, last year when I saw the Battle Sisters, they are freaking badass. But that is a video for another time. If I had to pick between building a fantasy land of woodland creatures and kit bashing a space marine, I'd still pick that fantasy land of woodland creatures. I do want to paint 40K stuff eventually, Battle Sisters, and possibly work 40K bits into other creative projects. Wink wink. But I still won't play 40K. That leads me into the central topic for this video, which is the primary reasons that I just don't play 40K. Like I started to mention earlier, it's really just not my ideal gameplay style. I'm more into RPG stuff, campaign-driven games, and the Dungeon Delvers. I also really enjoy cooperative gameplay. There is a pretty big cost associated with GW models, not to mention the paints, manuals, and so on. This is actually a pretty big barrier to the hobby because it requires an upfront investment from the player. Now, you don't have to buy your whole army up front. It's probably better to plan it and buy it in small pieces. Regardless, the cost per model is pretty high. If you have to buy the manuals and all the other things that go along with it for actual gameplay, it starts to get a pretty hefty price tag. For the cost relative to what I enjoy and can craft on my own, it's just not worth it to me. Again, if I have like one squad I really like, or I use some miscellaneous bits for my different hobby projects, that more so fits my unique needs. Once you've selected your army and you have your models, whether that be a part of an army or an entire complete army, there's now an accumulated overhead of work that you have to complete in order to actually start playing the game. The models need to be assembled, painted, and then you have to have a table to play with. If you go to a game store or if you actually want to play this competitively, you do need to make sure that you follow the paint rules and basing requirements and things like that. There are some workarounds you can do with big pre-cut pieces of wood and battle mats and pre-made terrains and things like that to make this easier, more efficient, and sometimes even cheaper. Regardless of any workarounds or special tricks that you use, it's still something that you have to recognize that you need in order to start rolling dice and playing the game. Once you've got everything picked, pointed, assembled, and painted, you've got your tabletop terrain, now you need to learn the game. And as a new player to the game, holy cow, it is pretty daunting to someone like me. It's like a plethora of just things that I feel like I need to know and study up on before I would feel comfortable enough playing somebody. Couple that with my lack of interest in the gaming genre, and it's gonna make that learning curve just a little bit steeper. However, I get that once you do learn it and the more you play, the more it starts to come naturally. Just like the indie. For me, I have to be willing to sacrifice my hobby time into just 40K to get to that level of comfort. First and foremost, I am a crafter. I don't necessarily even need a game to play to be crafting and creating things. I just love building and creating so much that if I don't even have a game to play, I will still paint and build things. I will paint minis that I don't have any idea of what I'm going to do with yet and create a story for them later. The ability to be really truly creative and inventive matters more to me than actually playing the physical game. Your average 40K player that is really into wargaming may or may not actually enjoy the process of assembling and painting the models. And that's totally fine too. They're in it to play the game. That's what they love to do, is play. They don't really want to do the painting and that comes along with it. The key difference to recognize is that there are creative barriers here for people that love to craft something completely unique. I'd rather have a really cool fantasy sculpt that an artist made that I really like, or something that I made completely on my own. I can even think how these minis might work into another creative project, and then it really just starts to get my gears going. It's not worth sacrificing the creative effort that I can put into heroic figures that I truly enjoy. So what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy huge wargaming battles? Maybe you're into fantasy games or party games. If you don't play 40K, what's your reasoning? Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in being part of a community that embraces raw, authentic, nerdy creativity at its finest, hit that subscribe button. Join the Nerd Guild. We would love to have you. Want to support the channel? Consider checking out the Patreon link in the description below and become a Guild VIP. Join the Discord community to get announcements across all my active platforms. Cool.